when you reach your authentic life, it can become very easy to kind of get comfortable and kick back and say, well, here I am, and I'm just going to chill. And you very well could do that if you want, but if you don't continue to evolve with your life, then you risk de-evolving away from the authentic life you work so hard to get to. So, the fifth and final talk. I want to, as I did every week, thank you all for taking time to come. I know as we get closer to the holidays, it gets darker earlier, it gets cold. It's a little bit harder to come back out of the house. So the fact that you got home, drove from Columbus, took the time to come over, take time away from family, it really does mean a lot to me. Like, I know I've said that every time, but I genuinely mean that I really appreciate you all coming out. And for those that have come before and aren't here tonight, but are listening or watching the replay, I thank you just as much. Look at the camera. Thank you just as much for being a part of this. And if you've only been able to listen to it or only been able to watch it because you live further away or Fishers is not convenient, thank you as well for tuning in on the podcast and watching on the YouTube channel. As I said in the first one, I promised you that these talks would all be independent. But in the first one, I talked about this being my J. Cole moment. The opportunity to put together a talk and have the opportunity to be in front of people. I don't get to do that without you coming. So thank you all for allowing me to experience that, but also pursue my authentic life as this is a part of it. And I kind of wanted to start real quick with a little bit of reflection. Actually, no, I need to thank Tristan for opening it up again, as always, and giving us this great place to meet, a safe place to meet, a warm place. And the last couple of weeks, I have highlighted the menu, so I'm going to do that one last time. So when you come back and support during office hours, I'm going to recommend the pastries. So when we first started coming here, it was when Roman was little, and maybe Leo was a baby as well. Come here on Fridays for breakfast, and the donuts would be what they would always get. Now, I know the donuts aren't made here, but some of the pastries are, and they're really, really good. So the muffins, cinnamon rolls, all those things, come back, and if your diet and your nutrition allows you to have one, indulge on one of those. And then I want to thank Morgan for always coming here, creating memories, allowing me to see what was going on and remember those things. The videos have been awesome, and I'm excited for the things we're going to create going forward to help me tell the story. So thank you, as always, for coming out. So now I want to start with a little bit of reflection. As this being the final talk of this Keep Pursuing series, when I started it, I really had no idea how it was going to go. I believed in myself. I had the confidence that I could do it. I believed in the message, but I really had no idea if people would come out. So I was a little nervous, a little apprehensive about doing it, but I'm really glad that I did because it's been a lot of fun. I've got to meet some new people. I've got to spend time with people I don't get to see all the time. So the whole experience was fun. And my big challenge to myself was I wanted to make these talks something where the words that I came up with meant something. I didn't want to just talk to talk. I wanted to have a talk that meant something. And I feel like every talk, there's been at least one person who has given me feedback that allowed me to feel like I've made a difference, or I inspired, or I sparked some ideas and some questions. So I think that that's been a success from my standpoint. And I hope the message has inspired you, but I hope that the event or the events inspire you as well. Because if I can come up with a series of talks, not knowing anybody who's done it to learn from, find a venue, and then get people to come every week, then whatever it is that you've thought about doing or you've been holding back to do, you can do it. So I hope that the event just shows you that if there's something that you really want to do, you should go do it and go try. And you never know what it's going to be, and it doesn't matter how many people show up every talk. It just matters that people show up. And you can't get to the sold-out stadium without talking to a room full of 10 people. You've got to start somewhere. So whatever it is you're doing, start it. And you will grow in ways that you could never imagine. And I think that when we think about growth, one of the purest ways to witness growth is just through our self-evolution. And I think that we do evolve. And so the subject of tonight's talk is how do you evolve with your authentic life? We've identified the version of ourselves that we want to become. We are doing the things, we're finding the alignment of spirit, mind, and body. And your authentic life is not a destination. So when you find that authentic life, it becomes your reality. How do you stay in alignment with that life? And I've got some stories to tell and some things to share, but I think that's really important because when you reach your authentic life, it can become very easy to kind of get comfortable and kick back and say, well, here I am, and I'm just going to chill. And you very well could do that if you want, but if you don't continue to evolve with your life, then you risk de-evolving away from the authentic life you work so hard to get to. So you should celebrate the changes that you made, because getting to your authentic life is not an easy path. For some it may be easier, but you have to make tough decisions. You have to make changes in your life. You have to sacrifice. You may have let go of some relationships that were really important to you at one time but no longer align with you. So there is some celebration to be had, but once you get to the authentic life, it's just really the beginning of living that authentic life. And living is ongoing. So when I think about evolving with your authentic life, one of my favorite examples of somebody who's done that and done it very well the whole way is Andre 3000. If you're not a hip-hop fan, you may not know who Andre 3000 is. He is one half of the hip-hop group Outkast. And Outkast is one of my favorite rap groups. Actually, it is my favorite rap group of all time. A lot of people will say Wu-Tang, and I like Wu-Tang, but for me, Outkast is it. And Andre, his whole career, has always been his authentic self. And you can see it from the way that he dressed and presented himself, but you can also see it in the way that he presented his music and his craft and the way he went about it. And if we look at his career, he got started, Outkast formed when him and Antoine Patton were in high school. 16 years old is when Outkast started. And when they were 19, they dropped their debut album, Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music. All spelled in one word, which I absolutely love. And that was the beginning of Outkast. And they rapped about typical things that high school kids would rap about, or college-age kids would rap about. And then they put out other albums. There was ATLiens, which was my favorite album in high school my freshman year. Like, I just loved that album. And then there was Aquemini and Stankonia. And then they released an album called Speakerboxxx and The Love Below. All of the albums up to that point was the two as a duo and guests. But that was true hip-hop. And Speakerboxxx and The Love Below was still a hip-hop album, but it was a double album. Each album was each artist by themselves, or sometimes some overlap. But Speakerboxxx was Big Boy, Love Below was Andre 3000. And they kind of separated things out. And when you look at that album, that was the beginning of seeing a new version of Andre 3000. Because on The Love Below, it was not a lot of rap from him. It was more funk and jazz and a different style of music. And he didn't really rap as much, he sang more. But you could see that he was enjoying himself. Hey Ya was the big song on there, and he's out there doing the spirit fingers and everything, and you could tell that that was really who he was. And if you look at the course of the albums and his delivery and how he did things, it was him being his authentic self. And after Speakerboxxx and Love Below, there were no more Outkast albums, except for Greatest Hits with one new song. And they had a movie they put out, and there's a soundtrack with that, but it wasn't truly an Outkast album. So 20 years go by, and we don't really hear much from them. Andre goes on and does what he's interested in. He gets into acting. He launches a fashion brand called Benjamin Bixby. And then he pops up here and there as a guest feature on other artists' albums. And every time he did that, he was the best verse, hands down. So he still came out, but he only did it when he wanted to. And then he went on and lived his life and kind of got away from being in the public. Come to find out, he has some anxiety around like being a public figure, which is wild for a hip-hop artist. But he realized that, and he realized that that lifestyle was not authentic to him, and he created a lifestyle that was better for him. Moved to California, does his thing. And then, 3 weeks ago, he drops a new album. New Blue Sun is the name of the album. His first solo album ever. Without a single lyric, without a single beat, no guest features. It's an hour and a half of him playing his flute and other wind instruments. And it's not a huge surprise that this was his album, because if you followed him along, he's popped up over the last few years just randomly playing his flute. He was in a Starbucks one time. He'll play it out in public. People not knowing who he is, giving him money like he's playing to get money as if he's poor. But he's been doing this, and it was a passion of his and something that he found and loved, and he just loved playing. He popped up on a James Blake song playing the flute as well. So it's not a surprise, but if you were to ask somebody what would Andre 3000's first solo album be, most people are going to guess it's a hip-hop album. And it's not. because that's not where he is. That's not who he is right now. And in an interview with GQ to promote the album, it's a really good interview. You should watch it. It's on YouTube. The interviewer asked, why didn't you do a hip hop album? Why did you do a wind instrument album? And I loved his answer, because he said that rapping felt inauthentic to him. And he jokes about, I'm 48 years old. What am I going to rap about? Going to get a colonoscopy? My eyesight going bad? Like, who wants to hear that? And because Andre, he's one of the greatest lyricists that are out there. He didn't rap about things that didn't matter. Like, if you listen to his lyrics, he's telling stories, he's telling real things. He wasn't a fake artist. So he's not going to rap about things that aren't what's going on in his life. So he felt no one wanted to hear that. But what he said next was really good. He said that recording the album that he recorded felt the most real and the most authentic. So he could have taken the easy route out. He could have recorded a traditional rap album and everybody would have loved it. It could have been horrible, but because it's Andre 3000 and we all want an album for him, people would have loved it. But he didn't. He did what was right for him, what felt good to him, what allowed him to be his authentic self. And I think that says a lot about what's possible. He risked a lot because he created an album that his fans may or may not have wanted. Now, thankfully, people appreciate it. It's done really, really well. It's outsold a couple other hip-hop albums that came out at the same time, which was a surprise. And I almost feel like this album was an album that the world needed that we didn't know we needed. That he just brought this thing because he loved it and he had this passion for it, and the world really needed it, because you see all the people talking about how great this album is that I guarantee they've never listened to a wind instrument album before in their life. But he just poured his heart into it. He followed his passion. He did what he felt was authentic to him, and the results of it are great. It didn't matter to him how many it sold. He created what he felt was supposed to be created. I thought it'd be fun to look at his evolution as well, just so you can see, like, if you're not familiar with Andre, like, you can see where he was in his life just by looking at him. So this is when, it'll be hard to see, Netflix Day, it's a big screen, it'll all be there, I won't have to hold it up. But this is when they got started. So this is when they're 19, 20 years old. Andre's on it's on my left, so you're right, in the football jersey. So that's Andre there. And then we get to the Hey Ya phase. So that doesn't look like your traditional rap artist. He's not wearing the football jersey he had on before, but he's being himself. Like, that is who he was at that time. And that phase didn't end there. He's got his white wig on and just being himself always. And it sounds silly to identify somebody being their authentic self by the way they dress, but I think fashion says a lot about who we are. Like, I believe look good, feel good, be good, and do good. So if you feel like you look good, you're going to do your best and you're going to be good. And it's all about doing what feels right to you. So the white wig felt good to him that night. And then he changed up a little bit more of his fashion. And then we come to today, him and his flute. And the funny thing is, the overalls he has on, he wears those overalls, not the same pair every day, but the same style of overalls every single day. And he actually sells them. But that's what he wears because he feels comfortable in it, and he doesn't have to think much about it, and that's what he always wears. And not only can you see his evolution, and again, he's being his authentic self the whole way. His heart, his passions are leading him to be how he is. You can hear it in his music. So this won't be perfect, but this is off their first album. Wow. 77 civilians. So this is Andre 3000 rapping now. I'll try not to get bad words, but I can't promise that. So that was Andre as a 19-year-old. I'll back it up since I was talking over it. So his voice is a little bit higher pitched. His flow is a little faster. And then we come to Aquemini, which is their third album. So here's Andre again. You can hear a difference in the music and in the beats. His delivery is different. It's not fast-paced. A little bit more intentional. So that's like the hip-hop phase. And now everybody knows this song. Now we get into, we're singing, faster pace. It's not really hip-hop, but he's being him. And this is another song off that album, just to show you the change in the style. He's just singing. Not what you would expect. And this album didn't get a lot of love. And we fast forward to today. This is him and his flute. And I love, the name of this song is, I swear I really wanted to make a rap album, but this is literally, I can't do this part. I got to let it scroll because it's too long of a title. So it's really, I literally want to make a rap album, but this is literally, come on, scroll faster. I swear it just like slowed up because I'm waiting for it. This is literally the whole way the album is. So like, and he said that like the titles in the album were trying, like, since he didn't have lyrics, we're trying to convey messages to his fans. But don't forget that he is a hip hop artist at his heart. And there are moments where even today at 48, he still wants to express himself as a rap artist. So there's a song that is nominated for a Grammy this year that he is a guest, he's featured on it. And this is him. So it's another different style. A little bit more spoken word versus rapping delivery. So he still has it in him, but he only releases it when it feels authentic to him, which is why I think he is one of the greatest rappers. You know, Eminem even said it in one of his songs. Reggie, Jay-Z, Tupac, Andre, and Biggie are his top 5. Andre being Andre 3000. So he is one of the greatest, and I think it's because he always follows his heart. He always listens to his intuition, and he only creates what feels right. And a lot of hip-hop artists, but a lot of people in general, just do what they think they need to do. You know, a lot of artists would have never dropped the album that he did. They would have done another hip-hop album because that's what the fans wanted. You have the risk of creating something your fans don't want and turning against you. Didn't matter to him. That was not the purpose of creating the album. The purpose of creating the album was more for him, and he hoped that people would appreciate it, but that didn't matter. And getting to that point, I think, is very valuable as you go on your pursuit of, you know, learning to do things for you, you know, considering family if that's a part of the situation, but doing it for you, but allowing yourself to grow the way that feels natural and right for you. And that spirit, mind, body alignment is very, very important and a big part of that. Now, I mentioned Andre could have very easily taken the easy way out. Create a hip-hop album, do what's easy, put it out there, and sell a bunch of albums and be relevant again as a hip-hop artist. But I feel like that would have been Andre becoming complacent and just doing what was easy and not doing what he felt was the right thing to do. Which brings us to a couple of traits that I think are important to think about: complacency and contentment. You know, to me, when I think of complacency, I think of it as just kind of getting comfortable, doing the bare minimum to try to maintain. And ultimately, I think complacency brings you to falling out of alignment with your authentic life, because you're not doing what's necessary to keep up with the evolution. And life evolves. You know, think about yourself. You're not the same person you were when you were Roman's age. You're not the same person you were when you were in high school or college. You're not even the same person you were a day ago. Life continues to evolve based off of the experiences that we have. And you can either evolve with your authentic life or you can evolve away from it. Complacency, I believe, will lead you to evolving away, because your authentic life is going to continue to move and you're not going to keep up with it because you're not doing what you need to. On the other, the definition of complacency, I'm sure you know what it means, but have you ever looked up the definition of it? It's to have a smug or uncritical opinion of yourself or your accomplishments. And I didn't know that. Like, I just thought it was, oh, you just don't really push yourself very hard, you just get comfortable. But like, the word smug made me hate complacency even more. And my definition, I never really attributed it to being overconfident. But I guess, if you feel like you don't need to do more, you've reached that level of where you wanted to get, then maybe that is overconfidence. And I think contentment can be very close to complacency, but I think there's a difference. You can reach your authentic life. You can reach your goal and find contentment. But when I think of contentment, contentment doesn't mean you kick back and stay there. Contentment means you're happy. Contentment means you have satisfaction with where you're at. But contentment is a state of being, where complacency is more of a feeling. And to me, a state is able to evolve. So your state continues to go and grow with your authentic life. So contentment is not getting comfortable. It's being happy with where you've gotten, appreciating the road that you got there, being grateful for where you're at. But it's also saying, if I need to do more work and I need to continue to grow, I'm going to keep on doing that. And that growth that will happen, especially if it's aligned with your authentic life, will be something that you want to do. Going back to Andre, he wants to play the flute. That was a part of his authentic life and his natural evolution. So doing the work and getting, improving at it was fun and enjoyable to him. So it's not that contentment means you are going to do work just to do work. It's when there needs to be more work because you feel called to do it, you're going to do it. But if for the time being your authentic life says, hey, where we're at is where we're good, and it's just small incremental growth, then that's okay. And I have a friend who is the epitome of allowing yourself to grow in a state of contentment, of being happy and satisfied. Her name's Alexis Yoo, or Lexi is what everybody knows her by. If you see a copy of the Fisher's magazine, we've got the Geist one here, but the Fisher's one, she's on the cover of it. She is a nurse who turned into a healthcare innovator. And I remember meeting Lexi years ago when I was playing in a men's league and her husband Min was on my team. And then they showed up at our CrossFit gym and they've been a staple in our life ever since. And when I met Lexi, she was not on the cover of Fisher's magazine. She was a nurse, which is a great career. What she enjoyed doing would have allowed her to provide for her family, experience good things with her family, take care of her clients. And when I first met her, I had not tapped into my superpower of seeing the potential in others. But once that power came to me and I realized it, I knew that Lexi was destined for more. So she's a nurse, and then she gets into researching about macronutrients. Our CrossFit gym that we were at was pretty competitive, and she learned about macronutrients, carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and started a little small business on the side called Macro Labs, which was calculating macronutrients for the athletes in the gym to help them perform better, gain muscle, lose weight. And because Lexi is the way she is, she loves learning, she learned how to do it really well and did a great job. So that little small business of Macro Labs grew to having a bunch of coaches that were doing the same thing that she taught them to do for other athletes. And it ended up being, they had athletes all over the country, some of them who went to the CrossFit Games, off of this, individual who is a lifelong learner, followed her interest, developed a passion for macro nutrients, and then created this business. And truthfully, she probably could have grown Macro Labs to be a really big company, had a bunch of other things come from it, because she was really early. There's a bunch of companies now that do this. Lexi would have been one of the first, but following her passions and realizing that there was something more in her curiosity, it led her on to other things. So she kind of set Macro Labs up for a while to run with somebody else, and over time it just kind of dwindled away. And while she was doing that and removing herself from it, still being a nurse, she started to see an opportunity to bring healthcare to people in a different way, which was perfect for our family. And she ended up setting up UDirect Health, which was one business model at the very beginning, which was just direct healthcare. So instead of going to a doctor, you could pay an annual fee, like a subscription fee, to go see her as a nurse practitioner, where she could do pretty much everything a doctor could other than like cut you open and things. So she can prescribe drugs and take care of you. So when the boys were sick, we didn't go to the doctor because we didn't have one. As two entrepreneurs in a house, we didn't have traditional insurance. So we were cash paying. We'd go see Lexi. She'd take care of the boys. It was a great model. She incorporated a little bit of the macro stuff into it. And then as her curiosity began to peak and look into other things, she brought in some other things. And now UDirect Health is a huge business with tons of nurses, tons of clients, and they've become an innovator in functional medicine and aesthetics. And they have an office in Noblesville in a building that they bought and built. They have an office down on the south side of town and are bringing a new way of medicine to more people and having huge impact on their people, on their clients. UDirect Health never gets to the state that where it's at today, having the impact that it's having. Lexi innovating and being a leader in medicine and having the ability also to be on TikTok and Instagram Reels, being her true authentic self, if it wasn't for her ability to follow her passions and follow her curiosities and take risks and bet on herself. It's to a T what evolving naturally is. From nurse to macro to direct health to innovator to who knows what's going to come next. Because I know she's not done. Because she's always learning. She's going to get her doctorate, I think. So her guide is the love of learning. What can our guide be? I'm going to restart the camera here for a second. You all know how this goes. I lost some of the Q&A last week because I didn't do it again. We went longer than my camera could do. So Lexi used learning plus passion plus interests to guide her towards building the business that she has now. What if you're not a lifelong learner? What if you're not sure how to continue to move in alignment with your authentic life? We've talked about some of these subjects or some of these guides over the weeks. Your curiosity, your passions, tapping into your heart, your intuition, experimenting, the alignment of spirit, mind, and body. Those are all guides that can help you find your way. And when you do have that alignment, it does become a lot easier. You have a better understanding of where it is that you're going. And using these guides may make you feel like you're wandering all over the place, like it's a wild goose chase, figuring out what's going to be next. And it might do that for a little while. And I'm a textbook case of what that could look like. If you look back over almost 9 years now, Arnold Wealth was the only constant in my professional life. So I launched the firm in 2015 as a barbell approach to helping people, a subscription model for young clients, the traditional wealth management model for older clients. And then that's when I started to get creative and follow my passions and my interests, which led me all over the place if you were to look at me. And if Anne's were here, you could ask her, I drove her crazy with all these ideas that I had. But they were all guided by my interests, and I had to experience what it was. So even though Arnold's Wealth was consistent and constant, the business model changed from time to time of what I thought I wanted the firm to be. From barbell approach and lifestyle practice, I had a mentor who said he thought I could open a big firm in the Midwest that would be big like his on the East Coast. So I was like, all right, I'm going to be a CEO and I'm going to build a firm. I started to go down that path and realized that wasn't it. Came back to just being me. And then I met a young advisor. I thought, well, maybe there's a good opportunity to build a team. Let me bring him on board. Realized that wasn't it. So then I came back to just me and helped him start his company. And then now I know exactly what I want my firm to be. But not just on the business model. If you look at the content that I created, because I love creating content, All About Your Benjamins is my blog where I write about finance sometimes, but I don't write about finance a whole lot anymore. That's been pretty consistent. But if you look at the way I wrote and the style of writing, I tried to write like an investment guy that I like. I tried to write like Morgan Housel, which was really, really hard for me to do. I tried all these different things to find out how can I best communicate. But it was all driven by my curiosity, my interest. I also had a podcast called Entrepreneur's Blueprint and a blog called Entrepreneur's Blueprint. Because at one point I thought I wanted to work with entrepreneurs and creators. So I tried that. There are a lot of pivots in my story. And it would look like I didn't know what I was doing. And maybe there were some times where I didn't. I was just blindly following my interest. But as I look back, all of those pivots led me to where I am today. And now I know without a shadow of a doubt that everything I do going forward, my evolution professionally, will all be under the umbrella of the authentic life. So back in the day, my experimentation and my wandering led me all over the place. And if you were observing me, not knowing me, you'd think this guy is, split personality. What's he doing? He's all over the place. Going forward, my evolution will be much more subtle. You won't notice it as much because it's all going to be in the same lane. So my thoughts and the way I communicate and the way I try to tell these stories will change over time. I'll have new ideas. Some of them I'll share with you tonight. Give you a sneak peek of what's coming up. But it will all be under authentic life. So it won't look like I'm evolving as much, but I still am. But I don't get to this point, which is a very refreshing point to be when you were struggling so hard to find your way, to find your lane. I don't get there without doing it. And for me, it was passions, it was interests, it was my intuition, curiosity that led me to find out where I'm at. And if I'd have just been complacent and said, hey, I've got a good business, I'll just ride the business that I have now, I'll grow slowly, I'll have a great life. Ange asked me, like, why do you want to do these things? Like, why, like, your firm is good. If you just grow a little bit every year, you have everything that you want. And that she's right. But that was not authentic to me. I couldn't give her a reason why I had to do these other things other than I felt called to do it. And now I know why. It was to get to this point. But in the moment, you don't know. So it's trusting those feelings and being willing to go try those things and realizing that if you pivot back, it's not a big deal. That's a part of the evolution. Sometimes you have to go down a path that you pivot back from to learn something for the path that you go down next, which is the path you're supposed to be on. You can't learn something for this path without going down that path, if that makes sense. So those are kind of some keys on how you can find that growth and find that evolution, avoid becoming complacent, and try to find contentment. And the final example that I have, I'm not going to tell you who it is first. You'll figure it out really quick. But this might be the most perfect example of what evolving with your authentic life looks like. And what the whole point of this Keep Pursuing series has been. So this individual who allowed him or herself to evolve authentically was born in Austria, experienced a rough and abusive childhood, was introduced to weightlifting through football, and fell in love with weightlifting, which turned into powerlifting. And if he's playing football and lifting, we know it's probably a dude at this point. So he realized that in order to reach the levels that he believed in himself, especially at this time, like this isn't today, it could have been girls playing football today, but back then, not a lot of girls playing football. So he realized that in order to grow to the levels that he wanted to grow to, his goals and what he saw for himself and believed in himself, he could no longer stay in Austria. So he moved to the States, California, and got into powerlifting, which got into bodybuilding. And got into bodybuilding, becomes Mr. Olympia. And at this point, you probably know who I'm talking about. Mr. Olympia multiple times, masters that, gets to the highest level possible, could have kicked back, good life, decides to become an actor with broken English. Becomes a box office hero, biggest movies out there, goes from action movies to comedies where he's pregnant, and then moves on from a movie star to become a politician. So at this point, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. I was going to leave it to the end, but I wanted to say this next part. So he went from, I'll be back, to I'm the governor. Who would have thought that that could have been possible other than him? And then gets out of politics. And I have no idea if he was a good politician or not. Like, that's not the part of the story. Gets out of politics and becomes an activist, focusing on global climate in different areas. And then now he is sharing his wisdom of his pursuit with the world. He just released a book. He's doing lots of interviews. There's a Netflix special. But he is somebody who evolved with his authentic life from a very young age to now he's in his 70s, I think. And he's sharing all this wisdom because he realized how to get there. So the reason I love his evolution is because every stage was something that you would have never guessed. Like if you had a bingo card for Arnold Schwarzenegger's life, you wouldn't have had politician, box office artist. Like you would have thought he would have struggled and stayed in Austria and just lived an average life. But the recipe that he had to get there, the blueprint that he followed, is very much what we talked about in this Keep Pursuing series. He had the utmost confidence in himself. He visualized where he wanted to go. He put in the work. You don't become Mr. Olympia without putting in the work. He realized that, there's a saying I love, that the universe conspires to work with you. It's not going to do the work for you. You have the vision, you set the intention, you have the belief, you attach the emotion, and then you go do the work, and what you want will come to you in one form or another. And that's exactly what he did on every level. There was no doubt that he was going to become Mr. Olympia. I encourage you to go watch his Netflix special because you get to hear him talk through it and other people who have been around him. It's really, really good. Like I wouldn't say I'm an Arnold Schwarzenegger fan. I think I watched Last Action Hero a lot when I was young and that came out, but I'm not a huge fan. But I watched that special on Netflix and I was like, how can you not like this guy? Like, everything that he says, especially if you like my message, you're going to love it. Because it's a poster for what I think is the right way for us to pursue our lives. And the fact that it worked for him gives me a lot of confidence that there's some truth to it. So the self-belief, the confidence, the visualization, putting in the work, and then taking risks. That's how a child who was abused in Austria can become Mr. Olympia, the governor of California, a movie star, and now an activist. And it was all what he wanted to do. I'm sure there are people along the way who told him, don't do that. Why would you make that leap? Just stay in your lane. Like, you've reached greatness. What more do you want? Well, there was a greater calling that he felt called to do, and that's why you make those leaps. I would be willing to bet if you asked him, why'd you go from acting to politics? Like, there were probably some reasons, but it was probably a feeling. He felt like he should do it. Like, he may not have been able to tell you this is why, other than, I just feel like I got to do it. And he did it. So the authentic life is not a destination. It's not some place that you get to that you just stop growing with it. Find your way to connect to that authentic life and stay tapped into it and grow with it so you don't lose it. Because otherwise, you're going to evolve no matter what. Remember, you're not the same person you were when you're younger. You keep on evolving. So you can either evolve with the authentic life or you can evolve away from it. And if you evolve away from it, you're going to find yourself right back in that feeling of discontentment, right back in that feeling of unhappiness, right back in that feeling of frustration that you worked so hard to get away from. Where if you just maintain your alignment, continue to follow your heart, continue to follow your passions, you stay in alignment with your authentic life. It's kind of like losing weight. You know, you eat healthy, you clean up your diet, go to the gym, you get good sleep, the weight comes off, six-pack comes back, you reach your goal. And now you have a decision. You can keep on going to the gym and you can keep on eating healthy and you keep on getting good sleep so you keep the body that you worked really hard to get to, or you become complacent and you skip a few days at the gym here and there, having excuses why and justifying it. And I'm guilty of this, so it's not like I'm saying this is not what I do. Miss the gym some, get a little relaxed on your diet. It's the holiday season. Don't sleep as well. And all of a sudden, six-pack starts to fade, weight comes back on, and now you're right back where you were before you did all that hard work because you didn't stay aligned with what it was that you needed to do to keep your body where you wanted it. And if you've ever done the work and you've gotten to a point where you get physically or and health-wise where you want to be, you know that you can't just do a maintenance to stay where you're at. Your new body has new requirements. Your new body has evolved. So your new body needs a new amount of calories and a new workout plan to keep on progressing slowly to maintain. Like, to maintain your body, you still need to grow, which is a hard thing to explain. It's the karate next door, or what is it? Jiu-jitsu. Yelling. I saw you guys like, what's going on? They're fighting over there, but they all love each other. So in order to keep yourself where you want to be, your body requires more of you, not just maintenance. So it's the same thing with your authentic life as it is keeping your body in shape. So the evolution is going to happen. You just decide whether or not you evolve with that authentic life and you allow your alignment of spirit, mind, and body to be your guide, or if you evolve away from it. And the final thing that I want to point out is the growth that comes with evolving with your authentic life is not growth for growth's sake. Because when you try to grow just because you feel like you have to grow and you're not being called in that direction, it ends up to moving goalposts. So in finance, especially financial planning, we talk about this concept of the goalpost being moved. You set a goal, I want to have a net worth of $3 million. If I had $3 million, then everything will be set, I'll be great. And the client gets to $3 million, whoa, $5 million is what I really need. When I get to $5 million, I'll be set. 5 million comes. Now it's 10 million. And they never are happy because they keep on moving the goalpost. The reason they're moving the goalpost is they don't have any connection to that number. It's just a number that they're picking. They feel like they need to grow. If you don't have that connection to the authentic life and you're just growing to grow, you're going to end up growing in the wrong way. It's the growth that you need to evolve with your authentic life doesn't have to be forced. If you have that alignment, it just comes to you. The synchronicities in the world and all those things that we've talked about in the past help guide you. So don't think about having to grow to keep up with your authentic life just for growth's sake, which is why I think it's more about evolving as opposed to grow. Evolving will allow you to grow at the rate that you're supposed to. It just naturally happens. And if you're in tune with your inner self, you have that alignment, it tells you everything you need to know about the growth that you need to find. But if you get to your authentic life, I think you owe it to yourself not to let it slip away just because you get complacent or you lose your alignment because you get comfortable. I never would have imagined that Arnold Schwarzenegger would be the ending to the Keep Pursuing series. Like when I came up with the series, I didn't write these talks out in advance. I started writing this talk on Sunday afternoon. And I knew Arnold was going to be a part of it, but I hadn't sat down to really look at his story more closely to put it in there. But as I was laying things out and trying to navigate the stories in with the original thoughts, I was like, man, this is just too perfect. I would have never guessed it at the beginning, but it came out to be exactly what it was supposed to be. Which is another thing that's kind of cool about this series is I came up with the framework, I came up with the concepts, but the speeches, or the talks, I don't want to consider these speeches, the talks, they wrote themselves. I didn't have to struggle hard to write these. These were easier to write than a blog post, and these were much longer and more detailed than anything I've ever written for a blog. They wrote themselves because I believe this is a part of my authentic life, this is a part of my pursuit, and this is a message that I'm supposed to deliver, so it all just falls into place. And it's possible for all of us. So I mentioned that this is the end of the Keep Pursuing series. It's not really the end. It's the conclusion of these 5 talks. But I've made a decision that I want to keep the Keep Pursuing series going. So I'll share with you some behind the scenes what's going to come. Again, since you guys have all been here from day one, share with you the vision because you helped this vision come to be. So my plan is to take these 5 talks, condense them down to 2. One of the things I'm learning is 5 talks is a lot to ask people to come to, which again is why I'm so appreciative of you coming. Whether it was 1 or all 5, I appreciate it, but it's a bit much. So what I want to do is condense them down to 2. And I have a friend who's an artist, has a studio in downtown in the Stutz building. I haven't pitched this to her yet, but I want to present the idea of having my talks at her studio and on the front end of it, having a DJ, showcasing her artwork, maybe bringing some other artists in and create it kind of like an event. Have the DJ, some networking, the artwork, come in and do talk number 1, end with some DJ and networking again, and then a week later come back and do the second part and make it like an event and have more to it and showcase people. So that's what I want to do with these because I think I can pair these talks and condense them down. Do talks 1 and 2 together, talks 3 and 5, and then 4 could be sprinkled in there. So the message doesn't get watered down, it's just delivered a little differently. So that's idea number 1. Idea number 2 is, it's just the ending of the 5 talks. I want to have the series be a monthly talk, sometime starting next year. I want to plan it out, where every month on the same day, 3rd Wednesday of the month, I will host a talk, but at different venues around the city. We'll come back here and make this one of them, because this will always be an important part of the story. But I want to bring it to different sides of the city to make it more accessible, to bring more people in, and have it not be the same talk each time. So the Keep Pursuing series is a continual pursuit of these ideas and these concepts and just allowing them to come to me and deliver the message. So I think that'll be part of it as well, as bounce it around. And then as the message perfects itself and as time goes on and my podcast is being listened to by more people and the audience grows outside of local, I want to take the talks on tour. So I go to conferences from time to time. Like I want to fly out early and find a venue, or I have friends in like Philadelphia and Detroit and say, hey, let's get 25 people at this venue and then take this on tour. And being true to my authentic self, I want to create tour t-shirts like you would buy at a concert, like image on the front, tour dates on the back type of thing, and like have this little merch to create another experience. So I want to take it around and have it in other cities. And then I have something special that I won't tell you everything about for these 5 talks. I'm just going to tell you I'm going to condense the message into a shorter form and do something pretty cool with it. So while the Keep Pursuing series ends tonight from the form of the 5 talks, it's not the end of the series. It's going to keep on pursuing because that's a part of a way for me to continue to grow and fine-tune the message. So I thought I would share all that with you. You all are literally at the very foundation of something I think will be pretty cool. And again, I don't get to do that if you don't show up for me, so I appreciate that. With that, I don't know if we have any questions and Q&A again. I thought that was really cool last week, but curious to know if you guys have questions or anything.